Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a very good day today. If you're joining us from the east side of Puerto Rico or from, buenas tardes, good afternoon, or basically good evening. Hi, my name is Esteban Maldonado, and I'm going to be the host for today. Now, last week, if you were able to tune in, or if you tuned in to other episodes before, you've seen that our host is Francisco Martin, but he's not with us today. He's actually traveling in very awesome Japan. So Francisco, wherever you are in Japan, I hope you're having an awesome time. And but you all are stuck with me here today. But we're gonna have a good time. So welcome to another continuation of another episode of Creator Divings. And like we've always done, if you've seen previous episodes before, I'm actually gonna go ahead and start and describe what these kind of episodes are for you. So, what are creator divings? Let me here. So creator divings are very usually like focused streams where we invite people from our community or people from like honestly we would definitely welcome people that are outside of the community if they want to come in and share their knowledge as well. And people can come in and share their learning experience for viewers or attendees. Uh, we wanted we wanted to do these kind of streams as like an additional resource where people can come in and add these to their portfolio, whether they want to improve it for seeking a job, or or just in general they would like to polish it, or even if they just want to share something from and we'll talk about like what is a good example of something a good topic that people can share. But even one of the good things about it is that live attendees can give feedback to the presenter as well. So what is a good topic? A good topic. This is why we call them creator divings. Like it could be anything. It could be if you're a game designer, come in and you can come in and talk about how is it that you made a particular design. How is it that if you're a UX designer, how did you organize the structure of the UI of a game, whether it's a VR, AR, or regular video game. If you're an artist, a 3D artist, how did you come up with the idea of making a model, or maybe a particular visual effect, or if you're an engineer, how is it that you worked on software engineering code, like gameplay code, tools development, and whatever other technical fields. Also, if you're in production as well, like that could be a very good topic. That would be something very valuable for our attendees and our viewers to learn about, because you know how it is in game development. It's a whole collaboration of different fields. Um, so presentations can be we recommend usually around 20 minutes. We don't want to super overwhelm folks that are maybe not used to public speaking, but we're definitely here to help you as a team. We even help you prepare and practice and even structure your talk as well. The only thing that we have to give a little bit of a warning is that please know, if you're employed by a company, or if you're a freelancer and already signed a contract, please do not share any company internal information that you're not allowed to. No unreleased projects, nothing really, nothing that no internal information about even if a project is released. But if there's internal information that the company would not like to share, then please, don't do it. Like, respect your NDAs. And if anything, at any point in time you need get if you're any point in time you have a little bit of doubt, remember it's always best to get written confirmation, written permission. But anything that you work on personally, and you worked on it publicly, a game jam, that's all good to go. So again, uh, who is it that can participate? Anybody that is working on a product. That's why. And a product can be something that you work for a game, or if you're a content creator, how is it that you structure the creation of your videos, your streams, or your blogs? That's also a product, and that's also a very cool thing that we would love to have you and share your knowledge on. So and also journalists, producers, musicians, how is it that you design? How is it that you made the audio live on a particular project? That would be amazing for us to learn as well, us as hosts, and also for all the viewers. That's awesome. We would love to hear from you. So one of the benefits of participating, like I mentioned, you can definitely You can support our community's work. You can share your knowledge and help other people learn. You can also improve your portfolio, increase it, and you have another um, you have a piece of content that is tied to your name, and you talk about your skills, and you can share it with potential recruiters, hiring managers, and just keep it for also keep it for yourself. And again, you can also receive feedback for live attendees as well. And we can share on all these social media channels that you see here. And there's a logo that we got to update there, but you all know which one it is. Okay, so if you'd like to participate, usually I'm the one who puts the links on the chat. Yeah, so I'm gonna share them real quick. But feel free to register. Yeah, we're running the episode in English because the presenter today requested that the presentations are done in English, but podemos hacerlo en español. Es la única razón por la que estamos haciendo esto en inglés ahora mismo. Pero but this can be, and we could even just default to our Spanglish. But for anybody, any people that just feel much more comfortable in Spanish, tan bienvenido y ojalá lo veamos por aquí un día. So we'll help you out with a prep session. We'll do we've done even two to three rehearsals if the person needs it. So we got your back. We want you to shine here. And and of course, for those of you that are part of the PRGDA Discord channel, if you have any questions about these streams, feel free to ask them in the Creator Dive In channel, a dedicated channel right there. But with that with that being said, I'm very excited that we're going to continue our talk from last week in game design best practices with the one and only Lorenzo Irizarry, aka the Sarukage. So let's welcome him right now.
Hey,
How are you doing, Lorenzo?
I'm pretty good. Thank you, Esteban, for that intro. Appreciate it, man.
Nice. So, Lorenzo, what happened last week?
Oh my God,
what was
this
game design best practices part one?
we basically covered a couple of things. I actually am gonna bring it up real quick so that people can kind of get a visual of it. If you want to put up my shared screen real
Oh,
quick.
heck yeah!
Um,
I
I'm
know I
gonna
was
show you
missing
guys
something.
on my massive mind map. Basically, last week we covered two main topics. The first one being that everything starts with an idea, right? So the core thing about game design best practices is that you have to start with a good idea. I'm gonna go over this real quick so we don't waste too much time and kind of catch everybody up. Um, the When you start with your idea, there's some core things you need to keep in mind. First, you have to pick a theme, something that fits with what your idea and flows within. It has a core sense to it, so that you can build off of. Right after you pick a theme, and you don't have to do this in this order necessarily, but you also need to pick an audience. Doesn't make sense to pick an audience that doesn't relate to the theme that you're making, or the type of game you're making. The example I used was someone that tries to make a kids game, something very kid oriented, and then kind of markets it or directs it to an older audience. That's just not going to make sense, right? So that has to fit too. uh, Set up a reasonable scope. I said Cyberpunk here as an example of something not to do. Cyberpunk's big launch failure was due to them having too large a scope, something they could not handle. So make sure that the scope of your project, the scope of your game is something that you can manage with yourself and your resources. Um, the other thing, when you're starting to flesh out that idea, is write everything down. This is very important. Write everything down. You have a notepad handy. You have a smartphone. Every time you have an idea, write it down, write it down. Make sure it makes sense, so that you have all your thoughts handy to you at any given time. You never know when an idea is going to be useful. So even if you're not going to use it right away, if it kind of sounds like a good thing to mull over, write it down, have it handy. Don't worry about limitations or rules at this point. When you're forming your idea, limitations are meaningless. Just, you want to test everything out. Forget rules. Forget whether you can do it or not. Just put it in there. You never know what it's going to turn into later. Try to have at least one game reference. Don't just try to make everything out of scratch. It's okay to use other existing games, no matter how old they are, as inspiration for your idea. Find someone who can give you feedback. Always have someone give you feedback. They don't have to be an expert. They don't have to be a game dev. They don't have to be a hardcore game a player. Just have people who you can trust, who you know are going to tell you the truth, and who you know are not going to be giving you unnecessary criticism. Always have people to get feedback from, because there's only so much you can notice on your own. So having other people to look at it from a different angle, different perspective is always useful. Revisit all your ideas often. Don't just leave it there and, oh, it's just fine, I don't have to touch it again. No, revise it, review it, rethink it, question it. Always revisit your ideas. This is a very fluid moment in your design stage. So always revisit your ideas and don't be afraid of changing anything. Nothing is sacred. All right. Start writing your design doc. I cannot overemphasize this. Start writing your design doc. Just bits and pieces is fine, but as soon as you have a fleshed out idea of how a mechanic should work, or how the game should look like, or how the user experience should be, write those things down. Keep them handy, or else you're just going to be playing catch up later. Your game design, your game design doc is your Bible. It is your lifeline. It is what's going to guide you and protect you from a lot of the worst habits of development out there. So start writing it down. And also start thinking about your business model. Make sure it's something that makes sense. Make sure it fits with your theme. Make sure it's targeted properly at your target audience. Don't worry too much about focusing on your business model at this point. Just have an idea of how you want to make money off of it. And if you're not planning on selling the game, you're probably making a freemium for whatever reason, then don't worry about it at this stage. After that, we went into bringing the idea to life. So you got your idea, you fleshed it out enough, you can start working on it. Now we start going into preparation for end production. So prototyping, start it as soon as you can. As soon as you have one tiny mechanic, one tiny feature that you can start creating and testing, do it. Do not waste your time. Do not wait until you have 2, 3 to go, because the worst thing you can do in development is try to spin too many plates at the same time. Start working on those ideas. You never know what you're going to run into. Maybe you have a great idea. It's, oh yeah, this is going to work like this, and I'm going to have this little feature and this little mechanic, and then you start trying to create a prototype and you run into an issue, and it's not working the way you thought it was going to work, and it's not looking the way you want it to look. You got a problem. Better to focus on that, start prototyping, start working out those kinks right away. Use all the tools available to you. This is very important. It doesn't have to be software. Analog tools are very important. Playing cards, tabletop RPGs, puzzles, building blocks, radio control toys, what have you. The list is endless. And don't worry, we have the YouTube video of our previous presentation, so that you can go and hear me talk about all of this in detail. So don't worry too much about those details. But the idea is to use as many tools for testing out mechanics and ideas as you can imagine. Even playing basketball can be a tool for testing out your ideas. So use everything you can. You don't need to code at all at this point. To do prototype, you don't need to do any kind of code. You can do it analog. You can do it idea-wise. You can just go back and forth, just soundboarding off a friend. Just like I said, use every tool available to you to prototype and test things out at every way you can. Use mind maps. I'm showing you one right now. This is how I organize my ideas. Use them. They are very useful to structure out your ideas and flesh them out and keep track of lots of details in very concise, easy to manage ways. Like I said, prototype often, make a lot of changes. This is the stage where you're gonna make as many changes as you can, because later, once you start production, no more changes. Do not make changes while you're in production as much as you can avoid it. Remember that. Do not start production until your design doc is set in stone. And this leads to that no changes after production starts idea. Your design doc should be your Bible. That should be your blueprint. That tells you what's going to be done and how it's supposed to work and all that stuff. If you start making changes to that mid-production, you're going to not only extend the length of your project and the amount of work exponentially, you're gonna start creating long-term problems that are going to come back and bite you when you least expect it. There's plenty of AAA stories about games that broke and went the way of the dodo because of things like this. Best example would be Anthem by Electronic Arts. Look it up. it's a horror story. Start testing, Q&A, as soon as you have something playable. Even if it's just one mechanic that you're testing, start doing testing and Q&A. Doesn't matter if it's just one person checking it out for you, working out bugs, issues that may pop up. Start catching things right now. It'll help you immensely in the long run, because rule of thumb with QA and testing, it should take at least twice as long or 3 times as long as it took you to make the game in the first place, just to get catch and many of the bugs as you can, and to polish it up enough for release. And last but not least, document everything. And I do mean everything, and not just the code, not just comments in code. Use my mics like this to have a workflow chart. Get creative. Every little bit of info you can document and keep track of, do it. It'll come very handy. Which brings us to the main first topic of today. We're going to start. I'm going to go over things to avoid, and I'm going to be doing a lot of myth busting, which are 2 of the things that get in the way of creative types, not just game developers. And I'm going to go pretty hard at it. This is the benefit of this also is that it's not just for us as game developers. This is something that everybody benefits from knowing, even players, because this is a bit of a 2-way street kind of relationship between players and the game developers that make the games they love. Understanding these concepts I'm going to go through right now is going to go a long way into improving communications between yourself and your audience, or the players and the developers of their games, which will in turn lead to a better effort to polishing the game, making the games better, making the experience better in the long end, and establishing a healthy relationship between the audience and the game. Here we go. Traps to avoid. First things first, and my absolute favorite, the number 1 golden rule of game design: don't punish the player. Now that sounds fairly simple, but what does that mean? That essentially means, first of all, not all exploits or bugs are bad or mean your game is broken. I put this way because there is a bit of a habit by developers or production companies, because you never know who's actually calling the shots. A lot of people blame the devs. Devs are usually just operating on the mandate by their bosses, so let's be clear with that. But there's this habit of, there's a bug or an exploit that players find or start abusing, quote unquote, in a video game, and the developer immediately jumps in and tries to fix it right away, instead of kind of taking a measured approach to it. Not all exploits or bugs are mean it's broken. Oftentimes a bug can be turned into a feature. An exploit can be a fun, an interesting, fun, or efficient way for players to address individual problems they have when they're playing the game. I'm trying to, like, the most common exploit that players go for with certain games is progression-related exploits, like XP farming and things like that. They find a trick where if they do certain things in the game, it allows them to get XP for their character to level up at exponentially faster rates than they're supposed to be able to. But they're usually very, very specific things that have to align a certain way, like aligning the planets type situation, in order for them to truly benefit. If you play the game normally, it usually doesn't happen. So it's not something that's chronic or happens outside of the player's control. It has to be intentional. You might think, well, then why should I allow somebody to, exponentially level up like that? Well, maybe a player is, I don't know, a single dad with a lot of work and very little time to play their games, who doesn't have a lot of time to play, and unfortunately, leveling up becomes a hurdle in them enjoying the experience, because they need to level up in order to play the game in the way they want, or get to the things that they want, or they have other games that they want to play, etc., etc. And an exploit actually turns into a useful tool for them to get through what would otherwise be a tedious grind that would dig into their limited game time. Just a very, very specific example of how an exploit can actually be a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. Especially, and here's the key, this is in a situation where through normal play, this would not normally happen. Exploits, like I said, tend to be very, very specific in the way they get triggered, and you have to really go out of your way to do it in order for it to actually happen. So if it's not generally breaking your game or the experience, and it's not affecting other players or things like that, then maybe it's not something you should jump on. On the other hand, an exploit or a bug might actually create an interaction in the game that is a lot of fun that the players enjoy, that maybe they don't want it to go away. It's just another way to play the game. It gives you another perspective into another way of playing the game that you maybe not have thought of. So it can turn into a feature. So do not look at exploits or bugs as automatically evil things that you have to squash, right? That was a bit of a long one, but it is a very important one. Just so keep that in mind. That is a very common trap. Oh, bug must be squashed. Exploit must be closed. No, think about it. Analyze it. Why does it exist? Who does it affect? How badly does it interfere with the game? Because especially for those of you who are programmers out there, you know that when you squash one bug, 6 more pop up in its place, or you fix an exploit, and in fixing the exploit, you break 10 other things. So really weigh the importance of fixing this thing versus the kind of damage it could do, or the kind of opportunities you would lose in doing so. Very effective meta is not something that breaks the game. You hear this a lot with game players complaining in certain games, particularly live live service games or competitive games where certain metas become predominant. Effective meta doesn't necessarily break the game. People use the word break a lot, and you're going to see me address this word like it's garlic to a vampire. The game is not broken. Meta is a meta for a reason. If you have an effective meta in your game and people are complaining about a lot of people using it, it's not that it's broken, it's that it works. The game is working as intended. The meta is just very, very effective. So attacking that meta that people are complaining about is probably not the best approach. Consider looking at the other metas, the other aspects of the game that you can maybe bring up so that you can level the playing field. And that's what actual balancing in a game is. So before you start fixing a broken meta, maybe take a step back and look at it and see if the meta is really broken. Is the meta in your game doing creating situations or having results that actually go beyond the limits that you intended for the game, or is it just very efficient? Efficient doesn't mean it's broken. Broken would be, things are happening in the game that should not happen ever under any circumstance. So keep that in mind. Try to avoid making players feel like they're playing the game wrong. And that goes to the core of the golden rule. Don't punish the player. If the player's doing something because it's fun, if the player's working within the rules of the game, don't make changes that then make them feel like they're being punished, or that what they did was wrong, like say taking advantage of those exploits or those bugs that were giving them benefits, taking advantage of a very effective meta. If you hit those way too hard, players are going to start feeling attacked, and we have plenty of toxic players out there that attack other players for those very reasons. And in the attempt of fixing this, you're just going to instead be turning your players off. Your players are going to get upset. They're going to go in, I find fun ways to play this game, and then they just immediately take them away. That's the feeling that you're engendering when you do that. So try to avoid that as much as possible. Don't take away, don't kill things out of knee jerk in order to avoid taking away something that could potentially be a lot of fun, and that you could probably turn into something brand new that could give your game a whole other dimension. Right? It's a missed opportunity. And finally, for the golden rule, if you have to change or take away something, try to compensate the players in some way. Particularly through game content is the best way. And I don't mean create a whole DLC. Oftentimes when you're testing a certain system, maybe the system's not working as intended, the player experience is very bad, and players invest time and in-game resources or something to that effect, like in-game currency or whatever, into that system. And maybe you get to the point where you have to make that hard decision saying, you know what, this is not working the way it was intended. We need to take it out. Don't just take it out. If you have to take it out, if you have to take it away, consider the investment your players made into it and compensate them in some way. Maybe refund some of those resources they spend into it. This actually is very dependent on how you structure the game and build it in the first place. So do consider this. But don't just rip it out of their hands and say, well, it didn't work, bye. And then the players again are going to feel punished because they're like, well, I spent 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months building this up, this new system that you put in there only for you to take it away. And now I don't even get to touch it anymore. And oh, wow, all those hours wasted. I could have been doing something else. Give them something back. Try to see within your game what you can do to compensate them for the effort that they put in, for the feedback that they gave you, for the interest in your game. Show them that you appreciate the fact that they took a shot at it, gave your new system a shot, even though it didn't work. All right, just goes a very long way with players. Next trap: you should be accurate and clear with your user language concerning your game. I cannot count the amount of times that whether it's a PR department or a hot fix or patch report that gets worded a certain way or gets typed in a rush, puts things in a way that can be very easily misinterpreted. Happens all the time. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen plenty of games like Diablo, Modern Warfare. I mean, the list goes on where they announce something and then something pops up and the players look at it and say, wait, are you saying that you're gonna blah, blah? And then you see all the social media blowing up. It's just bad. It's a black hole that nobody wants to go into. Be very, very accurate and clear with your user language. If you're using a PR department, make sure you communicate clearly with them what something means. Have long conversations. It's gonna happen anyway, but if you are careful about your wording, it's gonna happen a lot less. And probably at a smaller scale. Avoid the use of word broken. Like I said before, the word break, the word broken. Just don't use it when dealing with things that are not working or not being used as intended. The only time you should use the word broken is if something is actually not working, like the game crashes, a feature doesn't work, a mechanic is just not executing, graphics die. That's broken. A meta that is highly efficient or a bug that causes you to do triple the damage you're supposed to, that's not broken. The game is working. Something's out of whack. There's a bug. It's unbalanced. That's fine. Don't use the word broken to address those things because players already have, and I'm sorry, players, I'm a player too. I've been looking at this for decades. Players, unfortunately, do not understand what they're saying when they say the word broken. Like I said, a meta that's unbalanced or is extremely efficient. Oh, that you do this meta and you're a walking god. The game is broken. No, it's not broken. It's working as intended. It's working too well. So avoid that. As a dev, try to avoid using that word as much as you can. Get in the habit of using the word balance or balancing instead of buff or nerf. Please avoid it. As developers, we understand what a buff and a nerf is. Unfortunately, when you're communicating this, buff and nerf tend to be a black and white, us versus them kind of argument every single time. It's balancing. When you're buffing and nerfing things, you're balancing. Because the goal of a buff or a nerf, we understand, is to bring things to a level field so that everything in the game feels viable. That's the idea of balance. Have a nice balance between challenge versus fun, efficiency versus challenge, whatever you want to call it, whatever it has to do with your game. Reference to balancing. Oh, we're going to do a rebalancing on this feature because it's doing too much damage. We're going to do a rebalancing on this character because they have too much of a lead on other characters. They're far more effective than other characters, and it makes other characters feel irrelevant, etc., etc. Balancing, never buff or nerf. Even internally, use it. Sure, okay. Externally, please don't. It's better not to. It goes back to the previous statement of making sure that your players understand what you're trying to communicate and making that communication clear. Right. All right. Another detail on that. Let the players do this if they're like, as in, let them talk about buff and nerf all they want. Let them. Don't try to control that. That would be backfire. If they want to call it buff and nerf, whatever. Make sure that you on your end always refer to balancing, no matter what they tell you. So, oh, you buffed or you nerfed. And when they say that, just say, yes, we're rebalancing this to bring it more to level. And then you can explain it whatever you want, but just always bring it back to balancing. Don't get dragged into a tug of war. It's just not gonna do you any good. And it's a waste of energy, really. All right. Next point. People's opinions and criticisms are not a mandate. Devs, please, fellow devs, learn this. Production companies, please, learn this. People's opinions and criticisms are not a mandate. They are feedback. They are observations. Something you need to listen to. All opinions, however, how much you may disagree with them, all opinions are valid. They're opinions. We all have them. Criticisms, the same thing. One person will love something that another person hates worse than the devil. That happens. But just because someone has a particular opinion about your game or a feature of your game or a criticism about a decision you made or what have you, that is not a mandate. At the end of the day, the project is yours. The game is yours. You have a vision for it. You have an intended way for it to be, an intended experience for it. And these opinions and criticisms are, like I said, feedback and a guideline as to whether you're hitting that mark or not. Those criticisms should never be a mandate on what you are supposed to go in and change or improve. That's not how it should work, ever. Again, I'm not telling you to ignore people here. No, that's the worst thing you can do. Listen to them. Try to be civil with them as much as you can. Try to turn it into a conversation and exchange, but do not treat it like a mandate from God or something like that. Again, this is your idea, so own it. Own it. Use others' perceptions as use others' perceptions because they are a guide for what to revise and not as a mandate on what needs to be changed, added, or removed. Players, you're not experts on game design, nor are you professional troubleshooters, even if you have experience in programming. This is something I tell people all the time, especially in communities like the Destiny 2 community, and I'm calling it out specifically because it's one of the most chronic in this. There's a lot of players that go in and start talking about, oh, why don't they do this? The devs, oh, they just need to do this. Take this out. Why are you using SBMM? It's not working because da 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 da. And I immediately jump in and then go like, I'm sorry, do you work for Bungie? And the answer obviously is like, no. And I said, well, stop, because neither you nor I as a game designer, as much as I know about how this is done, neither of us know exactly how the sausage is made here, or how these systems interact, or what exactly is going on that's causing the problems that we're experiencing. So devs, again, listen to your players, listen to their observations, use it as a guideline, but players are not experts like you on what you're doing. So you cannot take it as a direct mandate as to what to do. Their opinion matters, like I keep saying, but they cannot help you figure out the cause or solution to those problems. Players should not be treated as professional consultants at the end of the day. So do take that to heart. In fact, Francisco, if I may take a little bit of a tangent here, Francisco mentioned on his creator dive-in a very good example of this for, I think it was Halo 3, where the devs were having problems because they got a lot of negative feedback about the enemy AI being crap. All the players were complaining about it. And they were going back and forth, and they kept tweaking the AI. And it's just, oh man, this AI, it sucks. And one of the engineers, on a whim, decided to make a change, not to the AI, but to the HP of the enemies, like the health of the enemies in the game. And immediately The players, oh, they fixed the AI, it's great. Blah, blah. The AI was not the problem. The problem was the enemies were too hard to kill because they had too much health. Reducing their health by like more than 20% rebalanced the game to a point where the experience was good and the AI, the balance between the difficulty of the AI and the challenge level and whatever for the players was, changed night and day. So that is a perfect example, and I thank Francisco for reminding me of it, because it just hits to the heart of it. So again, your players, they don't know how everything is made in the background. They just can tell you what their experience is. So don't take their observations and criticism like it's professional advice. It's just not going to help you. This one is even more important. Try to avoid social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, every social media in general. Just avoid it when you're looking for feedback. Do not get your feedback from social media, please. You're not going to get an objective opinion 9 out of 10 times. It's great for general hype and updates and PR, advertising, and it's horrible for everything else. And I do put that on all caps. Do avoid it. Instead, try to create an in-house forum. Use your Discord servers, use your website, or whatever you have available to you. Even Google Forms if you have to, which you dedicate specifically to discussions, bug reporting, idea sharing, etc. And do separate it by that so that you can filter it in and actually have people go in and go out of their way to in very detailed terms tell you what their experiences are, what their observations are, what their opinions are, and you can better. It's going to go a long way in you filtering out the trolls and the toxic language from the actual constructive criticism and the good observations and the good ideas. Right? To even emphasize that even more, build an actual community around your game. If you do that, if you do those forums and you open those channels for your players to communicate with you, you're going to naturally be forming a community around your game, and you're going to get massive support. And in turn, your game is going to get promoted that way. So this is just a generally good habit to have for your game as a whole. Do not design or change your game, mechanics, theme, or content to fit a particular business model. I talk about this in a bit in the last in the part 1 of this discussion. Your business model is not your game. Your business model is the way in which you make money through your game. Your business model needs to be adjusted to your game, not the other way around. If you change your game and its mechanics, the theme, its content to fit the business model, you're going to push people away. The people that enjoy your game are no longer going to feel like they're playing a game. They're going to feel that they're playing an ATM. And that ATM is not fun. It's useful, but it's not fun. Better to do it the other way around. Like I said, find a model that fits with your idea, fit that business model to your video game. Otherwise, you're just going to be trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. They just don't go together. Do not feed the trolls. Do not feed the trolls. There's going to be a lot of people trolling you about things like this. Just don't feed them. Just don't interact with them. Avoid them entirely. Game industry veterans, and yes, I put them under this, because some industry veterans are very, very confident and they have very insightful experience, but they are not excused from trolling behavior. And I'm pretty sure many of us in here in chat have seen the stories, have seen behaviors and actions by people, veterans of the industry, that are very much trollish. They're not excused. So do not think that because someone is a veteran game dev that they're not capable of trolling. Yes, they are. You do not have to, nor should you engage with those who are just trying to undermine or belittle your game, or your ideas. And big companies, big successful names out there will look at you and your idea and go like, oh, that's not going to make money. You're not going to get players, blah, blah, blah. They're going to start throwing stuff at you like that. Don't engage. The business model and game design need to be separate yet complementary. They're not symbiotic. They cannot be mutually exclusive or feed off of each other in that sense. If the business model becomes vital for the game to operate, or the other way around, then you're running into danger. Maybe it'll work. It's just something. It's a bit of a red flag to keep an eye out for. if you have you have to force a mechanic on the player for the sake of another, or especially for the sake of the business model, it's probably better to just avoid it. And this is what I meant by symbiotic. If a mechanic has to be forced in order to have an excuse to put in a business model, you're already going down the wrong path. You know, which is what goes to what I keep saying. The business model should be designed around the game, not the other way around. Okay, because if not, people are going to say, "Oh, pay to win," and you know how that ends. The Diablo auction house, if anybody remembers this from Diablo 3, it's a perfect example of this. I won't go into detail of it, but it's a good example. The Pillars of Eternity trading system. These are things you should be looking up and studying, because they're examples of bad business models that ruin the game. The Destiny 2 Pinnacle rewards, that is still in discussion, and Bungie's still trying to rework in some way. These are things that are force a player to play a certain way or to do a certain mechanic in order to play the game loop or play the game as in a way that is fun. The Destiny 2 Pinnacle rewards in particular is a good example, because it's a system that is being changed, has been changing for the past few years, and now they're making a very drastic change to it. Starting next year, for those of you who don't play Destiny 2, the Pinnacle rewards are your end game rewards, and you were limited to how many you could get a week, and they were limited to only certain activities at certain difficulty levels and what have you. And farming these was the only way to level up your character. And so if you didn't do the pinnacle activities, you could not progress. So if I wanted to play Destiny 2 for just fun, I would not progress, and I would miss out on 70% of the content, which is why they're changing it. All right. Next one. Quote unquote, we don't need that feature. What do I mean by that? There's actually a few here. We don't need that feature. We can do that better this time. Players won't really miss that. These are thoughts you should avoid. If something works, it's for a reason. So if you're doing a sequel to a game, or you're doing a new IP based off of a previous project, these are the kind of ideas you want to get out of your mind. If something works, it's for a reason. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Do not overlook players' favorite or most expected features. Games like Diablo 4 right now is struggling because a lot of the problems they have right now were problems that were solved and were at a great point in Diablo 3. And in Diablo 4, they decided to just ignore that completely and repeat the same mistakes of the past. So please do not ignore those things. They're there. The players like them and they work for a reason. Do not reinvent the wheel. Experience does not make you infallible. Again, this goes back to the veterans not being excused from trolling. It also goes back to letting you know, it doesn't matter how long a person has been in the business, they're human. They're not infallible. They're not God. So no matter how much experience you get or how much experience somebody has on you, doesn't mean that your ideas are less important or that they are incapable of being wrong. The more experience you have and the longer you work in your field, the easier it becomes to overlook things and make really simple rookie mistakes. And I go back to Diablo 4 on this. That's the biggest trap. That's why they're landed in the situation they're in right now. They are great developers. They have a lot of experience. They make great IPs in the past. But unfortunately, they let their experience, and they admitted to this themselves, they overlooked what was right in front of them because they thought, no, we got this. We know we know where we're going. We know why we're doing this. No, you don't. You are ignoring all the basics. Don't forget your basics. And here comes my favorite quote from my favorite philosopher ever. The only thing I know for certain is that I know nothing. Tattoo this virtually in your mind. And do not ever forget this phrase. Whenever you start feeling confident about something, pretend like you know nothing. Pretend like you're relearning it all over again. Apologize for that. Don't ever let your experience keep you from looking at things fresh, as if you've never seen them before. You will miss things and make repeat mistakes. Try to be as transparent about your game changes, updates, etc. as possible with your players. Be honest. Don't feel like you're going to get flamed. You might, but it'll be better in the long run because you're being transparent and honest with your players, and they'll know where you're coming from. You don't have to, but it's almost always better to be as transparent as possible. Why? It's clear communication with your players and customers leads to better, bigger, more significant improvements to your game and its future. Don't be afraid to admit when something isn't working, or recognize a bad design choice. The devs, Blizzard devs from Diablo 4 are doing this, but my personal favorites, uh, Digital Extremes, the creators of Warframe, are my favorite example, and they are the people that I direct aspiring devs to in as an example of this kind of transparency and openness. They do dev streams on their Twitch channel, and they're absolutely open and honest about everything, especially when they make mistakes, and they're not afraid of ripping something out of their engine and redoing it from scratch if they don't deliver on their players. And the players know this. The players know they can be honest with them, and they don't need to be trolling them. They have an excellent relationship with their players, and I mean, Warframe gets better every year. So people who not to be like, yeah, don't be like them. As many other games that I love, unfortunately, Activision is one of various companies that are chronically guilty of not being transparent, of ignoring player sentiment and opinions, and just doing whatever the heck they feel is right, with almost complete disregard of of the experience that they're generating with their games on their players. Don't be like that. Be transparent, be honest about your mistakes and about your solutions and your vision and so on and so forth. Your loyal player base will respond to it. Okay. All right. That is it for traps to avoid.
But by the way, I'm actually gonna take
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
take this opportunity to like point out like people have been commenting and everything.
Yeah.
I love, for example, Dark Moon Sama, when you were talking about exploits and bugs and how you shouldn't discard them. Like speedrunners love them. I was like, yep, that is very true.
And that is a good example. Dark Moon Bahai, by the way. That is an excellent example, actually. There's a whole culture on speedrunning. That is
So
a
yeah,
whole thing. There are actual tournaments and competitions around this. People watch other people stream these and try it. Like they have marathons for charity on speedruns on games going back to the Game Boy and Nintendo era. Uh,
yep.
and this is why this is another the perfect example of what I was talking about. Don't just crush your bugs and exploits. There's something there that you could possibly find to make your game even more appealing to a whole other crowd that you didn't even know you could. So, if it's not breaking, if it doesn't break while you're playing normally, you might not need to fix it. You might just break more things instead. So, excellent example, Dark Moon. I appreciate you for that.
And also here, Graham Code, like to your very recent agreed. And by the way, Graham Code, I also agree. Every time I learn something new, I realize that I know less. Like I would repeat those same words myself for real. So I
Yes.
super agree with this.
Oh, no, definitely. That's exactly the way that should be taken, and that is the exact attitude we should all have going into this. The more we learn, the more we realize, the less we know. Right?
That is the awesome
Uh,
thing about about this field, and how really I don't think that the learning will never end in an entire
Ever.
career.
Not if you're doing it right. Not if you're doing it right.
Exactly. But
If you think I have nothing to learn, it's like, oh nope, you failed. By career change time.
yep. Just as an example, just the field of XR
Hmm.
itself, like it's continuously changing. And now with
Oh yeah.
new devices and whatnot, there's worlds within worlds of stuff to learn. I feel that's how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just how you feel. That's the reality. I mean, thinking of how long I've been, studying tech as a whole in all its various forms, it's a never-ending black hole. Like right now, as we're speaking, there's a bunch of technology and methodologies being developed that we don't even haven't never even heard about. That once they come out in a month or two, are gonna blow our mind. So
Yep.
it's and it's gonna exponentially speed up and speed up and speed up. It's like we're heading towards a singularity type situation, right?
basically, especially with an AI and everything.
Yep.
No,
Oh
but
God.
honestly, like,
Yeah.
but honestly, like Lorenzo, I'm learning. I'm having a good time here. People here,
Oh, excellent.
attendees are definitely having a good time. So, like,
Glad to hear
definitely,
it.
I'll definitely leave you to continue. But this is awesome.
The good thing is we're going to go into the more fun aspect of the thing, the less technical one, because it's one of my favorite things is the myth busting section. Common design myths I love to bust. And keep in mind, I've been studying these things and considering these next few concepts for years. And so I'm very, very confident that I'm on the right track on this. But like I said before in the first part, take it with a barrel of salt and try to, adapt it to your situation as best it fits. Whatever doesn't fit, discard by all means. So, first things first. If your idea isn't 100% original, it won't work. Gather an audience, be successful, be fun. None of those things are ever going to happen. You hear this a lot. This is a myth. That is not true. I have a couple of examples to prove this. River City Girls 2. This is, if any of you know anything about classic Nintendo, you know of River City Ransom. It is one of the oldest games from the 80s. River City Girls 2 is the sequel to a remake of that kind of game, that beat 'em up game. Literally, even the characters, Kunio right there that you see there, the characters are straight from River City Ransom. There's the same lore, the same world, and everything, and they basically created a version of it focusing on girl characters. And here is the remake of the original River City Ransom series, and they're on Steam, and they sell very well, and they got really, really good reviews. They're not original ideas; they're literally rehashed classic games that already exist. They got polished. They added a couple of new features, better graphics in a new system, modernized so you can play it on modern systems, whatever. It's not 100% original, and it does well. Use it. Just because your idea is not 100% original doesn't mean it won't work. Myth busted. Moving on. Deadlines are important and necessary. I hear this a lot. And this is a very old industry habit that I despise with a passion. I will be very honest with all of you. But there is one company, and we all know them, they're very, very famous, that created the concept of Valve time, and that is Valve. Yes, the developers of Steam itself, they came up with a concept called Valve time. When they were developing Half-Life, they got asked why they never put out a deadline or a release date or stuff, and they kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. And they shared an internal term, Valve time, with in an interview that they did, where they explained that their philosophy was that the game will be ready when it's ready. And there's a good reason for that. Now, did they have systems in place and funding and all that stuff so that they could do this extensively without the need of or pressure to release it sooner? Of course they did. That's part of what planning a game development project is. Making sure you have the resources and the people and the workforce to have the project last as long as it needs to complete the product. But that's just it. The focus should be about completing the product. The reason a lot of AAA games in the past decade or more come out with a ton of bugs is because they get rushed because of a deadline. The deadline should not be the goal. The goal should be the game or the product being the intended game or product. Look at Cyberpunk. They admitted it. The scope was too big. They tried to rush it out the door. They gutted a bunch of really cool stuff people were looking forward to, and they flopped when they released. Great redemption story, by the way, if you want to look into it. Another myth. You won't make money if you don't implement monetization. That's DLC and in-app purchases, cosmetics, etc., into your design. As I've said before, never design your game around a business model. This is not true. This is just not true. You want a good example? This game was made by one guy. One. The artwork, the animation, the sound. I think he got people to help him with the voice acting about it. But the game itself, the development itself. Oh yeah, Silksong time. That's another. Yeah, hell yeah. this game has been rehashed for new systems over and over again. It started on Xbox, like one of those first indie Xbox games that got sold. This guy, super successful. Look at the release date for this and then look it up on Steam. It is everywhere. He had to port it to multiple different platforms because it became so popular. It's such a great game. And when it came out, very few bugs, if any. I don't remember any bugs. Excellent platforming Metroidvania type game. And it was made by one guy. No super monetization thing done, super affordable game. And it's sold and it's sold and it's sold and it's sold. So if you make something of quality, you make something fun, people will pay into it. So you don't have to tailor some monetization or DLC into a game to make it successful and make money. All right. In 3D games, this is another myth. Highly detailed, realistic, high polygon assets provide the best results. Avoid low poly, simple assets. Make it as realistic as possible. If you can't see the pores of the skin, you're doing it wrong. And we have a very recent example. Enough said. This actually, for those of you who don't know, this started as a joke. The guys that developed this made it as a joke. It looks like another very popular like first-person shooter IP out there, doesn't it? Of course, Battlefield. These guys intentionally made a super low poly, like Minecraft level low poly Battlefield FPS game. 100+ players simultaneously in a server. They have every single feature you would want in a shooter, and that Battlefield, every single feature that Battlefield always bragged that they could create as a player experience, and nailed it, knocked it out of the park. Most fun, like super massive PvP Battlefield type game out there, and they make Battlefield feel like a piece of crap. As pretty as Battlefield looks and amazing as it is, this guy has all the game mechanics down to a T, because they are not relying on massive assets, and the size of the game is minute and the cost of the game is negligible. It's a fun game. So if you feel like if your game doesn't have top of the line graphics and stuff, it's not going to be successful, people are not going to want to play it, there's your proof. Not true. Just not true. The game is fun, people will play it. Trust me on this. Coralie, I don't know if you're watching. This one's a shout out for you, our very own PRGDA member, Coralie Rosario. She's a UX UI expert, and I've seen her proselytizing this. This is another myth. UX UI is simple and it's not that important. Oh my God, no. Oh my God, no. Please do not fall into this trap. Do not believe this myth. UX and UI is probably one of the most important things you can learn and pay attention to in your game. Even if it's not your field of expertise, please learn this discipline at least a basic level, because it'll help you avoid mistakes like what they made with Call of Duty, the most recent one. If any of you here have played the most recent Call of Duty, you will all agree that one of the most persistent and frustrating complaints that players have about it is the UI. It is a mess. It is a mess. It is confusing. It is awkward, and they keep fixing it. They have to rip it out and recreate it from scratch. This is the only way to fix it. I'm telling you right now. Do not fall into this trap. Do not look down on UX UI. It is very, very important. Please don't believe that myth. This is my favorite one to rant about, and I will try to keep it short because I could dedicate a whole other creator dive in just on this concept. RNG as a game mechanic and tool is like, RNG is your friend. RNG is super cool. You can use it for anything. I put it under myths for a reason. It is easy to implement. That's another myth. It's not easy to implement. Not really. It adds replayability. Sure, if you know how to do it right, but it's not that simple. It's actually rewarding. Well, it's actually more like, RNG is about as rewarding as a slot machine. It's necessary to make the game, insert game idea mechanic here, to work. That is also not true. You do not need RNG to make a particular mechanic work. The only exception to that is if you're designing a particular mechanic around RNG or randomness. but that's a whole other discussion itself. All of these things together lead to a lesson to be learned. Over-reliance on RNG risks turning your game, oh God, into a slot machine that encourages a gambler mentality. And that's where the whole, oh, it's rewarding. It's about as rewarding as going to Vegas. It is random. There is no player agency, which is probably the most important thing. And I do discuss this in the part 1, so please go and check it out. Player agency is the most holy thing you should protect in your game, allowing the player to feel like they are in command of their gameplay. Again, this we can dedicate a whole other creator dive in on player agency in itself. But RNG is just that. It's randomness. And if you insert way too much randomness into your game, you're just turning your game into a massive slot machine. And I'm going to pin this back. Sorry, Destiny. I love Destiny 2, the game. But there's 90% of their systems rely on RNG for everything. And so the player feels like they have absolutely no agency as to how they progress, how well they progress, what they get, what kind of, if they get rewarded at all. It is horrible. There's nothing more frustrating than playing the same game loop, the same stage, the same game mode 100 times over and not getting what you were promised you had a chance to get. Enough said. Moving on before I go into a rant, because I will turn into Lewis Black and rant until no end. Another myth. You are not the lead designer, project lead, or have game design experience. So your opinion or ideas won't make an impact or don't matter. Oh my God, there's nothing could be further from the truth here. This goes to all of you, players and game devs alike, artists, sound engineers, UX, UI experts, all of you, even social media community managers. The variable stay in your lane argument has its place, but this is not it. Your opinion does matter. It doesn't matter if you're just an artist, programmer, sound tech, community rep, whatever. Your opinion does matter. You have insight. From your lane, you do have insight. You see things that your programmers don't see. You have things from your expertise that leadership doesn't see. And so, yes, your ideas do matter. There's a place for them, and that's up to the team and the project and whatever to discuss, but don't ever feel like it doesn't matter. Internal testing in QA is enough to find or cover most bugs and issues. Oh my God, worst myth ever. My fellow QA testers that I work with and I partner with, oh my God, this is so frustrating for them. Nothing could be further from the truth. You will not begin to find any of the real problems in your game until it's out in the wild. Players are unpredictable. Referencing back to the speed testers, players will find the most obscure, bizarre interactions in your game and weird things to do with gameplay and your mechanics that you couldn't possibly dream of on Opium. Your best testers are your players. This is where alphas and betas come in. Early access is a very useful tool if done right. It feeds into defeating this myth. They are your ultimate QA team. Going back to what I said before about communication and transparency with your player base, this is why you do it. They're the ones that are going to find your real problems. They're the ones that are going to show you the things you can do with your game that you never thought you could, that you never thought it was possible. So protect that QA team. Take good care of them. Popular content creators with large audiences provide great insight on your game's success, design, popularity, etc., etc., etc. If I ever catch any of you saying that on my stream, I will ban you on principle. If I catch you saying that on the street, I'll sucker punch you without saying a word and walk away without explaining why. Because that is the worst thing to believe ever. So please, just no, they're not. No. Content creators are just people like you and me. I'm not here to criticize content creators. But content creators have opinions just like everybody else. Their audience are usually like-minded people to them. And as much as they deserve their opinions are valid, and we should listen to them, like I said before. It is a narrow perspective. So if you're using 1 or 2 or 3 famous content creators as a sounding board for what's working or not working with your game, please don't. I have a lot of friends that are content creators. Some of them are partners on Twitch. One of them I actually support directly from his very start. I built his streaming machine and I help him maintain it. I help him upgrade it and all that stuff. Really cool guy. His name is Average Matty. He actually had to walk away from this because he saw himself being pulled into that kind of mentality and that kind of toxic environment. Just don't go there. Just don't use them as your feedback. Have them promote your game. Do not use them as a mirror of what's working or not working with your game. Another myth: popular or suggested game engine tool in here is the best, so you should use that. No, I don't care if it's Unity, I don't care if it's Unreal, Godot, or whatever. There are engines and tools out there for every conceivable project, task, tool, role, etc. Not just one. It behooves you to be familiar with many and not just one. And it's largely a personal choice issue. It's like the argument of Linux versus Mac versus PC. People ask me, which is better, a PC or a Mac? Because most people don't know what Linux is. And I go like, what do you like? And they blink at me like they're confused. It's like, it depends on what you need it for and what you like. If you don't like Windows, I'm not going to recommend a PC to you. That'd be dumb. So, same thing with engines, the SDKs and those tools. Use what works for you. Use what makes you more efficient, productive, what have you. Use what is good for the particular project you're using. I cannot think of a project where Unity wouldn't be a great tool for, but I could see, depending on how you design your projects that Unity might not be the best tool, or Unreal, or Godot, or what have you. Use the tool that best fits you and your project. Think of your needs and requirements before settling on one. And it's better to become familiar with 2 or 3 at least, instead of focusing on just the one you prefer. Because if we all know what happened recently at Unity, Esteban, oh my God, I'm so sorry for what you went through. And if for a while there, people thought that Unity was going to go away and people were just going to boycott it to the point it was going to be useless. A lot of people panicked because all they were using is Unity and they didn't know what to switch to. You need a life jacket because you never know when a company is going to make a change that you don't like or that doesn't fit you. You know, you never know who you will be working with either, or if when a situation will force you to switch engines to solve a problem as well. So it's not just about big, drastic, melodramatic moments like that. Always have more than one tool that you're familiar with. Very recent example, like I said, Unity. That has been corrected. The damage has been done, but it has been corrected. So a lot of people are breathing a sigh of relief. But still, it's a good example of why you should not put all your eggs in one basket. Now we come to the very last, the wrap up. And this is just a few final words of advice. These are not best practices. This is just things and thoughts I want you to keep in mind going forward after hearing all of this, or whenever you're working on these projects or working with people, or just even mulling over ideas. Things you can't go wrong with. Allow for player agency whenever possible. You heard me mention it a minute ago. I cannot overemphasize this. Player agency is the best policy every time. Empower your players and encourage creative gameplay. Players often find very interesting and unexpected ways to play and interact. This goes back to the whole QA thing. This goes back to the whole exploit thing that I was talking about. Use that. There's a treasure trove of opportunity there and creativity and what have you. Make them part of the creative process. If possible, if you can add mod support to your game, add it. Just add it. You'll be surprised what gamers come up with. And yeah, like I put it here. Do I really need to explain why? I mean, seriously, this is a perfect example right here. Skyrim. And now Cyberpunk, and a whole treasure trove, a list of games that have mods that just, oh my God, just look into it. I'm not going to explain it because there's too much out there already, and I don't want to drag this on further than I need to. Tailored experiences versus classic difficulty. Esteban, this is another idea for another creator diving. Seriously. We all come, especially those of us who are old school, come from the times of you want easy mode, regular, normal, or hard mode. try to go for tailored experiences instead. It's tailored experiences is more like allowing putting features or options in games where the player can tweak the specific aspects of the game to balance it to a more pleasurable, more fun experience for them. A lot of these get translated into accessibility features nowadays. Like some games, like the Spider-Man games, give you the option to automatically succeed on all the QuickTime events and controls. A player might just not be good at it. A player might actually have a physical disability that doesn't allow them to successfully do QT events in a game, and therefore they won't be able to progress in the game or enjoy it because of physical limitations. Putting an option to not have to do that in a game goes a long way into incorporating and including a whole section of your player base that you may not have thought of in the beginning. And that's no offense to anybody. It's just things that you don't initially think about. But doing a tailored experience goes a long way to things even like that, and it'll make your game that much more accessible. That's not the same as easy. Much more accessible, and likable, enjoyable, and fun in the long run. If and again, at the end of the day, remember to do it in a way that fits your idea and your vision. But something to consider. Get and take advice from trustworthy and verifiable sources. You already heard me tell you who not to listen to. Now I'm telling you who to listen to. Don't be afraid to tweak or tailor said advice to better fit your situation. So it don't matter if you trust the person to death. If I wanted advice on anything Unity, I would reach out to Esteban immediately. Does that mean I'm going to take everything he says and do it without question? In a large part, probably. But that's beside the point. There might be advice that he gives me that is really good advice and is true, but might not fit what I'm trying to do. So again, even if you get advice from a trustworthy source, make sure that it fits what you're trying to do. Don't let others tell you what's good, what's not, or how to make your game. That's what this leads to. It's your vision. Own it, like I said before. Make sure it fits what you're trying to make. Be as flexible as you can allow. Don't break, bend whenever necessary. You don't need to sacrifice your vision for this. So don't feel like you have to bend so far. It's like, well, I wanted to do it this way, but everybody says it. No, if you're already in that train of thought, your project has already failed and you haven't even started. You don't need to sacrifice your vision. That just means you need to take a step back and rethink a lot of things. Take your time with it. Be flexible, but don't necessarily break. Know your history and learn from it. Why? Unity, CD Projekt Red, Anthem, Marvel's Avengers. These are all groups and products, games that did not learn from history, did not learn their lesson. Especially Anthem is the worst one there. Please, whenever you see big incidents of IPs or failures or just general horror stories, pay close attention to what happened and look at postmortems and white papers that actually tell you what caused the problem. Dig deep and then take that to heart and learn from it so that you don't repeat it in your project. This is very important. This is something I learned from one of my best friends. He works in AWS and like Docker level technologies and things like that. This is something he told me from a story that there was an argument between the dev team and leadership, and he was in the middle because he was the release engineer, and they were complaining on why he wouldn't release the latest version. And long story short, the saying goes, your work isn't done until your clients gain value from your game or service or your product, basically. So if your clients, your players, are not getting value, you're not done. You may have released your game, but you're not done. You're not done. If they're not getting value, it's because something's not working. The vision is not successful. There's something that needs to be adjusted, what have you. Don't ever think, oh, the game is done. No. The game is done when people are playing it and having fun the way it was intended. If that is not done, if that's not happening, it's not done. That's the whole reason Anthem is dead. Clients equal players. That's just for emphasis. But it also equals the developer. It equals a production company, etc. It's whoever you are making the project for. This goes to Francisco's creator dive-in, and I encourage all of you to watch it if you haven't already. He discusses this in a lot of detail, so please go back and check it out. You'll understand what I mean by that. And last but not least, and this is the biggest piece of advice I can give you all, and it's the best practice out of all of the ones I've done over this 2-part series. Please focus on the fun. It's a game. You're making a game. If it's not fun, it's not a game. And your work isn't done. Thank you for having me, guys. We have finally reached the end.
Wow. Amazing, Lorenzo. Thank you.
No, thank
Honestly,
you. Seriously.
out of the stream, like like it's almost like each section could be another like a deep dive into a section. Like for example,
That is by design.
nice. No, but like I fully agree. Like with the last one of like your clients equals players, developers, and all that. That's why I wrote there. Like, yep.
Yeah, I see that.
Like for example, as a tools developer, a gameplay programmer, who are your clients? It could be a designers. Who, as a tools developer, who's your client? It could be basically the entire team because tools development is you could help out in DevOps, you could help out in gameplay, you can help out as a tech artist in art. And or for music or narrative. That's so yep.
The list goes on, yeah.
Nope. But honestly, Lorenzo, thank you very much for definitely sharing this awesome awesome talk.
No, of course.
For,
Thank you for having me. Seriously.
one thing that I really like that you talked about, like, and I was
Yeah.
kind of curious was so you mentioned that like the game, I believe it was the gameplay and monetization system should really be separate but symbolic or symbiotic. I believe it
No,
was.
not symbiotic.
Oh no, not
So
symbiotic.
they should not depend on each other to survive.
Okay,
Is what I said.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I got it backwards.
Sorry. That's
No,
good thing you asked.
no, but okay. So it's like at the same time, you should definitely have a good monetization system and think it through early on.
Yes.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, be separate from the gameplay.
Yes, it has to be
Okay.
treated as a separate thing because it is a separate thing. The goal of the monetization, the business model, essentially, it's what I mentioned at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Start thinking about it there. You should be thinking about it there. If you start thinking about your business model after you're in production, you're in for some pain. It's not that it's not doable. It's just you're adding more work. It's going to be far more difficult because you're not keeping it in mind in parallel. They're not intertwined. They're not symbiotic. They're in parallel, but they're two separate things. Which is why I use the auction house for Diablo 3 as an example. They had to rip it out because when they designed Diablo 3, they designed it with the auction house being completely symbiotic to the game. And what ended up happening, long story short, because we can just talk about a week about this, the players, a lot of players, started using the auction house as the only way to be able to progress in the game. And then a bunch of other players started predating on this, being predators on this, and making money off of this necessity of the people. So there were people spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on gear instead of playing the game to get the gear because it was far more efficient and far easier to get the gear with the stats and the builds that you needed through the auction house than it was to play a game. So people were spending 5 hours in the auction house to get their gear and then playing the game for like 30 minutes.
Honestly,
So yeah,
that's crazy. So definitely, people learn from the mistakes of the past, as Lorenzo has definitely advised. But all of you that are still here, thank you for remaining even after this long. And Lorenzo, honestly, glad to have you back again. And
it's an honor for me, man.
no, thank you. Like, gladly have you again. And thank you everyone for joining. This has been another creator dive in. Definitely putting the link here in case anybody would like to register and participate. One thing though, obviously, we went through a lot, but remember, presentations can vary depending on the person, what they would like to talk about. So, and yeah, you're definitely feel free to welcome and sign up. But oh, any last words before we log off, Lorenzo? Oh, I think Lorenzo actually froze. So, oh well. All right. Well, at least we were able to give the talk and everything. So everybody, take care and say goodbye to Lorenzo's unfortunately frozen face. But thank you again, everyone. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.